Hello everyone, it's Daz, and it's been a second since we talked world politics and geopolitical events. However, things consistently escalate, especially in the new calendar year. And one thing that is for certain is that there is a push to rewrite the world as we know it. Borders being redrawn, imperialism swinging back, and is NATO even going to be around anymore? Are we being pushed closer to a civil war in the United States or towards a world war in that external locus of control that Americans had prided themselves in is quickly disappearing, or that internal locus of control, because the external is taking over the internal. And what is happening right now is a battle of ideas, and most recently with Maduro being captured and brought to the United States for trial, it's garnered mixed reactions. Some Venezuelans are celebrating because he was not a good leader and there was a lot of suffering, while others see this as a sign of more imperialistic moves from the United States, with threats to put Colombia and Cuba in line in Mexico, and threats to take Greenland, and France withdrawing from NATO, or at least trying to get away from NATO. And with the US being the leader of NATO, what happens if they decide to go in on Greenland? And other countries are already saying if the US interferes, like they're working on a plan in Europe to combat that. So we have that happening with the United States seeming to grab up land when China's eyeballing Taiwan, and them and Japan are in really bad terms, and Japan's trying to help Taiwan arm themselves against China in case something like this happens. And then you also have, of course, Russia and Ukraine, and Europe being lulled into a potential war with Russia, which is the last thing many want. So much violence and so much rumors of war. But then in the United States, I'm sure you've all heard the story about the ICE agent who shot the woman in her driveway, I believe, outside of her home, who the right is saying that she was trying to run the ICE agent over. The left is saying she was trying to flee. Regardless, the woman ended up shot in the face and killed, and it's garnering strong reactions from Americans because A, she was a citizen, and B, more and more people are feeling like the ICE agents are being given immunity and they're like the modern day Gestapo. A day after that, there were 2 people shot. I believe they were both Venezuelan by ICE. They didn't really give the details of why, but they're both in critical condition in the hospital. And now more city leaders and mayors are stepping up and telling ICE to get the F out, like the mayor of Minneapolis. And their governor, Tim Walz, who's also the vice president nominee in the 2024 elections, was telling ICE that if they try to do anything else, he's prepared to get the Minnesota National Guard involved to get rid of ICE out of their state. That sounds like a civil war. And then Pennsylvania basically said that if ICE tries to do anything in their state, that they will be prosecuted. And I know Portland halted any more ICE activity. So there's this idea that states kind of standing up to the federal government. And what does this sound like? It sounds like a civil war, because that's what the Civil War was. It was different states breaking off and fighting. Things are so polarized, with people saying that they're liberal or they're conservative, that they're Republican or Democrat. People get so emotional. They get to the point where it's like they can't even sit in the same room over politics, and it's honestly crazy. But the division has grown, whether we're talking division over race, gender, class, political ideology. There's just so much division in this world and in this country. I feel like a lot of this is a distraction from what's really going on, which is that the world as we know it is changing, and the dollar is dying. The society we once knew is gone. I do think the U.S. might be successful in gaining all this land, but there's going to be consequences to that. And the U.S. is desperately trying to grab up every resource they can because they know that the U.S. is declining. And so using this whole cartel drug war thing is a good ruse for that. Not saying that there isn't a real drug war, cartels, and corrupt leaders, because there is. The same way in Nigeria, they talked about the Christians being killed, even though there's also Muslims being killed. But they use that as an excuse to go in and try to most likely take their minerals. So a lot of divisiveness and a lot of manipulation at play. It almost seems like as the United States grabs up more land, China grabs up more land, and Russia grabs up more land, these different countries are going to fight for power, but I feel like it's establishing things for a one world order. You also have the United States threatening Iran as well, and right now they had a total blackout where nobody has access to the internet, and Iran's kind of like the last stronghold in the Middle East opposing capitalism. Not saying that the current regime is good by any sense, but we really are seeing a change of tides and times. And I would just advise you to stay prayed up, stay informed. Now's the time to make sure that you are stocking up on items you might need. I would say make sure that you're strong for the time to come physically, because if there were a civil war or just violence, or even less a lack of food or resources, you'd be surprised what some people would do. So make sure that you're staying up on your fitness, whether it's running, whether it's strength training, grip strength, self-defense especially, and also that, you're learning to be more resourceful, because 2026 literally just started and it's already looking insane. They're really trying to set the tone here with all the chaos that's happening, and they're trying to bring a new order out of this chaos, which we've heard before. I'd like to know what your thoughts are on all these events. Please let me know. Take care, have a wonderful rest of your week, and God bless.